Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Mets Daily on the Fan Arch Network. John Saponaro here with you today and every day to talk about our New York Mets. And of course, before we get started, a quick shout out goes to our friends over at Kalshi for sponsoring the video for a limited time. Use the code FANARCHBASEBALL on the Kalshi app to get $10 when you trade 10. I am just going to come right out and say it. This is rock bottom. This is the end of the 2026 Mets, and this might be the end of even more in this organization. Players, coaches, managers, front office, GMs, Pobos. I don't think anything is off the table after what we witnessed last night. Now, I'll be honest with all of you. Sometimes I record Mets Daily in the morning after the game. Sometimes I record Mets Daily the night before, immediately following the game. It all just kind of depends on my schedule. It depends on my general mood. It depends how much I want to talk about this team. It depends how much I need to talk about this team. Today's episode, June 25th, Thursday, I recorded last night, about an hour or so after the game wrapped up. Why? Was I chomping at the bit to talk about this team, this terrible, piss-poor excuse for a baseball team? No. But I wanted to talk to you as honestly and as earnestly and as in the moment as I possibly could, because that is the job. That's the duty of hosting a daily sports podcast, is to make sure that in moments of extreme situations, the big moments that are happy, the big moments that are sad, the frustrating times when you're flying high, when you're down in the dumps, in those spots, is to come on as quickly as possible and to give you my honest, unfiltered appraisal. Or in this case, unfiltered save for some language appraisal. The New York Mets lost to the Chicago Cubs twice on Wednesday. They got swept in a doubleheader for the second time this season. They've now lost 5 in a row, and they've lost 6 straight games to the Chicago Cubs. The Mets have lost in embarrassing fashion all season. But this is the worst. The Mets committed 6 errors in this game. 6 errors. If you're watching this and you go, John, that sounds like a lot of errors. Yeah, it's a ton of errors. It's an unfathomable amount of errors for a Major League Baseball team to commit. Bad teams with terrible defenses, teams who didn't spend the winter talking about run prevention and improving their defense, don't commit 6 errors. You can go seasons without committing 6 errors. In fact, the Mets haven't committed 6 errors in a game since 2014. The Mets went 12 years since the last time they committed 6 errors in a game. And of these 6 errors, 2 of them by Marcus Semien, by the way, all of them were committed by the infield. All 6 errors across the infield. Semien, who has gold gloves to his name, one as recent as last year at this position. Francisco Lindor, who was coming back in his first game, who has gold gloves, who we hoped was going to help solidify the Mets defense, he makes an error. Uncharacteristic, unfair to maybe take him to task for it, fine, but whatever, he did it. Bo Bichette, who was playing elite defense at third base to start the season, who I said on this show yesterday, it might take a minute for him to readjust once he has to switch back to third base, he makes an error. And of course, Mark Vientos, who is largely useless, finds a way to make a spectacular diving play and then finish with a throwing error. After doing the hard part. Now, I'll be honest, even my disdain for Mark Vientos, I gotta be fair. Not a routine play on either side. He had to get rid of it quick. He was going up against the speed of Pete Crow Armstrong. AJ Minter sprinting to the bag. Vientos is trying to lead him to the bag. Minter's got to beat PCA in a foot race. Minter has to try to find the bag, not trip, not collide, catch the ball. There was a lot going on. But be that as it may, even still, the Mets make an error on that play. And not only were there 6 errors in the game, and I said you can go back seasons upon seasons to find the last time your team did that, and we already did. You know the last time the Mets had errors made by their entire infield? 1962. The first year of the Mets. The awful New York Mets. The disgraceful New York Mets. The New York Mets who for a long time held the record for the worst record in a regular season. That's how far you have to go back. To one of the worst teams ever assembled to find a New York Mets team that made errors by each of their infielders. And I said you got to go back 12 years to find the last New York Mets team that made 6 errors in one game. And it wasn't just the errors. That's what's great about this one. It wasn't just the errors. There were at least 3 other balls misplayed in this game that you can't give errors for, but poof, maybe you should. Brett Beatty has a ball go over his head and off the wall in right field because he has no business playing right field. But the Mets seem to think that Brett Beatty is some kind of incredible asset because he's versatile and he plays all these positions. No, Brett Beatty can stand in a few places. You know what Brett Beatty is? He's an above average third baseman who can't hit. He's not a second baseman. He's okay there, but he's not good. He's not a first baseman. He's bad there. And he's not an outfielder. He's bad there. Now again, was this a routine play? No, maybe not routine. But it's a play that an outfielder should make. And Brett Beatty not only doesn't make it, it turns into a triple. But then, we've got an outfielder out there who is good and who should make a play. And that's Carson Bench. The Mets do some reconfiguring. They get different guys in the game, so they move Carson Bench from left field to right field, and he has a ball kind of go off his glove. Now, that ball was absolutely stung, and I'm surprised Bench even got to it. But he got to it, and like Ronnie said on the broadcast, he didn't quite overrun it, but he just kind of didn't get into a spot where he could catch it. Now, again, I'm not going to give him flack necessarily because it would have been a great play, but it's a play that needs to be made. It's not a spectacular play. It just would have been a really good one. So that's 6 errors plus 2 misplays. And then finally, the man of the hour, Marcus Semien, drops a pop-up kind of out in no man's land between himself and Carson Bench. The ball was blooped. Bench was playing too deep. He wasn't going to get there. Semien got there. The ball kind of maybe turned in the wind a little bit, got a little bit away from him. Again, a tough chance, not routine, but a play that good baseball players on good teams going well, a play that needs to be made. Especially to try to stop bleeding, especially in a game where there's already been so many defensive lapses, especially in a season where you're fighting for your lives. How many times have I had to say that to you guys? But he doesn't make that play either. So the Mets make 6 errors in this game where they have more errors than runs scored. And they have another 3 plays that should have been made. That's 9 misplays in one baseball game in 9 innings. That's about as terrible as you can possibly be. And speaking of the 5 runs they scored, and speaking of terrible, another stat that Gary Cohen threw out during the broadcast, and I'll repeat it for you because maybe you didn't watch the entire game, because why would you? You shouldn't have. I did. I wish I didn't. but I did it for you. I did it so that you wouldn't have to. Gary Cohen threw out a stat on this game. He said that entering tonight's game, Major League teams were 35-0. 35 wins, no losses, with a +4 home run differential. So that means if a team hit 4 home runs more than their opponent this season in Major League Baseball, that team was 35-0. The Mets hit 4 home runs today. The Chicago Cubs hit 0 home runs today. That's a +4 home run differential. Mets are the first team in Major League Baseball this season to lose a game out-homering their opponent by 4. You can't make it up. I wish you could. I wish that was nonsense. I wish I was BSing you, but I'm not. One more time, I'll say it. The Mets are the first team in Major League Baseball this year to out-homer their opponents by at least 4 and lose. And if that doesn't tell you all you need to know about how this game went, about how these 2 games went, about how this day went, about how this series went, and about how this season has gone, I don't know if I can give you a better example. But I'm feeling generous on this show, so I'm going to try. Because like I said to you, the Mets lost their 5th straight with their loss today, or their 2 losses today. It's hard to keep track of the losses. And in those 5 losses, the Mets have given up 50 runs. 50. Fill up the flag with the amount of runs the New York Mets have given up in just 5 games. We know, since I've taken over this show, Mets pitching, starting pitching, has not been good. I was going to go out of my way to pull up the starters' ERA in the month of June, and then today's games happened, specifically the nightcap, and I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm not doing it. I don't care, because I know it's a bad number, and it doesn't matter. I'm not going to bore you with the number. Who cares if the Mets starters' ERA in June is 6.81 or 7.45 or 9 or 10 or 100 or a million? Who cares? We watch the games, we see it, we know how bad it is. And no ERA for starters over the month is going to tell you more than 50 runs allowed in 5 games. 50. 5-0. Not 15, although we'll get to the number 15 in a little bit. 50. When you allow that many runs, the culprits are everywhere. It's the starting pitching, of course. But of course, the bullpen means that they're going to contribute to that too. So the Mets' lauded bullpen that has been so great, and they deserve credit for that. They've had a couple falters here and there, but it also means 50 runs means you're not making plays. And it doesn't have to be to the tune of 6 errors. It could be a double play that's not turned. It could be something that just keeps an inning going. One of those other misplays that we talked about. A ball that gets hit over Beatty's head because he has no damn business being out in the outfield. Could be a lot of things that contribute to that kind of awful, terrible performance over a 5-game sample. But let's talk about Sean Manaea, I guess, because he started this game. Sean Manaea was far from the worst pitcher I've ever seen, and he was bitten a little bit by some of that bad defense and some of that bad luck that kept him from going deeper in this game, but he wasn't good. And I'll give credit to Sean Manaea for this. In the post-game press conference, Sean Manaea said he was bad. He said that 3 innings was unacceptable, and he needs to go longer, and he needs to be better. And I give him credit for that, because that's a dude who's sitting there and taking the onus and taking the accountability. And when we've spent so much time in the month that I've been hosting this show talking about people not taking accountability for themselves, like Mark Vientos and Kodai Senga and David Peterson, hats off to Sean Manaea for sitting there and wearing it and making it so that Francisco Lindor and Carlos Mendoza are not the only 2 people that have to answer for this disaster. So if I could say anything positive about the Mets tonight, thank you to Sean Manaea for being a stand-up guy and answering those questions and taking it on the chin. But he took it on the chin in the game too, because he only went 3+ innings. 6 hits, 4 runs, 3 of them earned, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. Again, not the worst run in this stretch of 5 games, but not good enough. And so the end result, regardless of what the final score was, it leaves you with more questions than answers. It leaves you with more speculation. It leaves you with more confoundment. It leaves you puzzled as to where they can go from here. We talked yesterday, 2 days ago now, about the Mets having 20 games in 20 days. We just spent time talking about how bad the starters have been in the month of June. How good the bullpen has been, but the fact that you cannot push them to the brink. And yet here we are day after day, 3 innings, 2 innings, 4 innings, 5 innings, but 5 innings and 10 runs. How are you winning with those numbers? And so what you find yourself doing, a game like today that the Mets lose 10-5, they managed to get all of their A bullpen guys in a game and lose again. Because they have no choice but to go to them. And I know that doesn't really matter because the season is done, kaput, spent, it's over. So who cares whether or not they have some of these guys rested for tomorrow? Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And tomorrow may never come. Tomorrow ain't coming for the Mets. So I know, you're going to hear that part of it and say, who cares? But it's just emblematic of this awful season that they've had. You try to set up games in Major League Baseball. 162 games played in like 180 days. They say it's a marathon, not a sprint for a reason. You got to be careful with how you use your bullpen. You got to manage it right. How many times this season have the Mets had a game like this where their starter gives them nothing or not enough? And they go and they get Raley and Minter and Weaver and Williams, and in this case, even Brazoban in the game. They're 5 best relievers in a game that they lost. So if you've got a lead tomorrow, good luck, I guess. And again, I know it doesn't matter because who cares? The season's over. Some of those guys might not even be on the team in a month or less at this rate. So I get it. But again, it's just so frustratingly predictable for the Mets to find themselves in this spot yet again. Baseball season is here. We know it's here. It's hurting us every single day. But baseball season is here, and now you can trade every game on Kalshi. You know what I do? Before I sit down and hit record, I pop on over to the Kalshi app, and I see what kind of interesting propositions of value they might have for you, usually as it relates to our New York Mets. And I'm going to give you a bonus one today. I've got 2 for you because I think this is an interesting, fun way to play it. If you go on the Kalshi app, they have odds, percentages for the Mets to make the playoffs. And the yes, the Mets will make the playoffs in 2026 is trading at 12 cents a share. That is not good. That does not have a lot of faith in the New York Mets making the postseason. The no is trading at 91 cents a share. So, if you have a small amount, if you want a small amount of free money that you want to walk away from this with, then maybe no at 91 cents makes sense for you. You've got to wait a couple months for it to unfold. But, $100 will get you like $109. So it's found money. It's in the couch cushions. Maybe you can get yourself a latte or something. Or if you've got free money to play with, maybe you say yes. Because their $100 will get you $785. So I'm not talking about whether you're a positive fan, a negative fan, an optimist, a pessimist, the season's over, the season's not over, what about 2024, what about Grimace, what about OMG, or this is just like 2023. I'm not asking for any of that. I'm just saying, if you want to wait a few months to make a couple bucks and get yourself like a pizza, then maybe you should trade on the no. Or if you've got some money you don't mind losing, then maybe you should trade on the yes. Either way, on Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there is no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, you already know what it is. Use the code FANARCHBASEBALL on the Kalshi app to get $10 when you trade 10. Kalshi, trade on anything, must be 18 and over. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risks and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. We have to talk about Dansby Swanson. Because Dansby Swanson, who was a thorn in the side of the New York Mets when he played for the Atlanta Braves for all those years, he's gone to the Chicago Cubs, and he's had some up years, some down years. Largely, he's been a bit overpaid and, kind of got that deal. And Dansby Swanson hasn't been great over his time with the Chicago Cubs. Now, he still plays defense at a pretty high level most times, and that's important because that's what the Cubs do. Mets, if you're looking for run prevention, look over at the team in Chicago, see how they do things. But Dansby Swanson has done something that I find remarkable over the course of this series. Dansby Swanson came into this series hitting under 190. I said he's had some up and down years, mostly down with the Cubs, but this has been a bad season for Dansby Swanson. Frighteningly bad. He's hitting ninth. His defense is what's keeping him on the field, keeping him in the game. He's hitting ninth. He's hitting under 200. He was hitting under 190. I think he was at 183 when the series started. He has played 3 games against the New York Mets. He has 15 RBI. 15 RBI. I'll say it one more time. Dansby Swanson has played in 3 games against the Mets this week. 3 games in 2 days. He has 15 RBI. 15 RBI is like a good month. He came into the series with 20-something RBI. I don't remember exactly what it was. I mean, who's to stop him from just doubling his RBI total in a 4-game stretch? The Mets have one more game with the Cubs today. That is insane. There are guys that get hot. There are guys that get right. And I know we joke about this stuff all the time as Mets fans. We say, if your pitcher's not pitching well, let him face the Mets. That'll fix him. Let him get right against the Mets. That'll fix him. You got a guy who's coming into the game and he's, 0 for 24. Let him get a couple of at-bats against the Mets. That'll fix him. I know we joke about that. But my God, Dansby Swanson having, I would have to look at all of his numbers. I don't know him off the top of my head. Probably the worst year of his career. Having one of the worst years in the sport in 2026. 15 RBI. A good month. And the series isn't even over. And every time he comes up, he just hits the ball in the screws. Every single time. Every single time. He had 7 RBI in one game. 7. So this is next level. When we go back to the beginning of this episode and we talk about the errors and the misplays and the 35-0 with the +4 home run differential. We talk about all these little things. We talk about all these numbers that are on the side when you're watching this video, the 50 runs allowed in 5 games. Add to it 15 RBI from Dansby Swanson. As the Cubs are not only beating the Mets, they're not only showing that they're better than the Mets, they are rubbing the Mets' noses in it. And that's where we'll end the show today. The Cubs are an okay team. In the series preview, we talked about it. The Cubs have had a strange year. Not a good one, not a bad one, but a strange one. Some up, some down. In some ways, not that dissimilar to where the Mets had been, to where the Phillies had been, and the Cubs were kind of right in the middle. The Phillies, the Cubs, and the Mets all had this really disappointing kind of start. The way that they were going wasn't great. The Phillies fire their manager. They take off. The Phillies are now on a run. The Phillies are like 5.5 games or 4.5 games behind the Atlanta Braves now as they are really headed in the other direction. The Mets can't get out of their own way, and they seemingly have gotten worse. They're now 12 games under 500, which is their low water mark of the season. And the Cubs have kind of been stuck right in the middle of those two teams, just middling around. We talked about it the other day. The Cubs have already had a 10-game winning streak and a 10-game losing streak to basically reset their entire season. So they shouldn't be this good. They're an okay team. But they are outclassing the Mets in every single way. They're better managed. They're better coached. They're better prepared. They're better disciplined. They're better defensively. They're just better. And what's funny is they have problems in their rotation too. You wouldn't really know it. I mean, yeah, they've had some guys give up some runs in this series, but they haven't had the complete and utter blow up, the complete and utter failure that the Mets have had. They have 6 starting pitchers on the IL. 6. The Mets have 2, and the Mets can't figure it out. With 2 starting pitchers on the IL, the Mets can't make it work. They're getting destroyed. They're getting decimated. They're getting beaten in every stadium they go to. The Cubs have 6 starting pitchers on the IL. They're not good in the rotation, but they're not as bad as the Mets. The Cubs have guys in the bullpen that are hurt and ineffective. The Mets have a good bullpen. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Mets can't score off the Cubs bullpen. Cubs keep scoring off the Mets bullpen. Maybe the defense helps them out a little bit, but whatever. Doesn't matter. These are not two teams on opposite sides of the spectrum. The Mets aren't playing the Dodgers. The Mets aren't playing the Braves. The Mets are playing a Cubs team that's not that much better than them. At least they shouldn't be, but they are. They're better in every single facet of the game. And like I said before, they are rubbing their noses in it. Stealing bases while they're up big. Laughing, joking. The Cubs broadcasters having fun. The Cubs broadcasters aren't players on the Cubs or coaches, so it's a little different. But just the entire Cubs ecosystem having a real laugh at the Mets' expense. So here's what I'll say. When you take the 50 runs in 5 games and the 6 errors and the 35-1 now with the +4 home run differential and the 15 RBIs to Dansby Swanson, you take all of that and you combine it with this, with getting beat and getting laughed at while they beat you, somebody needs to be fired. I waited a little bit to record because I wanted to do it right away, like I said, but I waited a little bit to see if any news came out. So far, no good. Someone needs to be fired. Is it Carlos Mendoza's fault? I don't care. I don't know. I don't care. Bad teams get managers fired. I said that in April. I said that when the Mets were in the midst of a 12-game losing streak. I said that when the Mets, going back to the season before, had now had 4 losing streaks of 7 games or more. This is not just this season. We all know how last season ended. But do you remember how the unbelievable, miraculous 2024 season began? Carlos Mendoza's bad at his job. He had a couple of really good magical months that saved his bacon. Other than that, he's been a bad manager of the New York Mets. 4 losing streaks of 7 games or more. A 12-game losing streak. Over the last 162 games that they have played, the Mets are 71-91. And then with their season on the line, with their lives on the line, I told you 2 days ago that this was a 20-day stretch where the Mets could maybe, hopefully, give us something to watch, not in September. Cross that bridge when we get there. Maybe not even in August, but to make July relevant, to play meaningful baseball in July, in the thick of the summer, and this is the effort that this team puts out, Carlos Mendoza should be fired tonight. When I wake up in the morning and this episode drops and you listen to this episode, it should be out of date because he should be fired between when I stop recording and when you listen. But he won't be. There's no accountability. There's no urgency. There's no answers. There's just more questions, more nonsense. Ron Darling, credit to him, on the broadcast, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, this is the type of loss that makes you reevaluate things. And he went on to say, yeah, the Mets said they wanted to give their guys the opportunity to show that they're a good team in this group and blah, 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 blah. That's what David Stern said in his press conference to open the homestand. This is the kind of loss that you take that, you rip it up, throw it aside. And he's right. Will the Mets do it? I don't think they have the guts. They didn't do it when they lost 12 in a row. They didn't do it when they had 4 losing streaks of 7 or more over the last 2 seasons. They didn't do it despite the fact that over the last 162, they're 71-91. So why would they do it today? And that brings me to the last point that I'm going to bring up. I haven't been doing this show long enough for you to know this if you only know me from Mets Daily. But if you know me from Mets Twitter, if you know me from Till Mets Do Us Part, you know that I was a massive David Stearns supporter. Like a lot of Mets fans, I wanted him here. Like a lot of Mets fans, I thought he was the perfect person for this job. Wildly competent, aggressively smart, knows how to build a team with little to no resources in the smallest market in Major League Baseball that just continues to play good baseball. So imagine taking some of that philosophy and then adding money to it. I thought he was the perfect guy. And over the course of the last 2 seasons, I've also defended him. Because when I look back to last year's trade deadline or some of the moves in the offseason, I always say that as an outsider, and that's what I am, I'm an outsider. I cover this team in a sense that I speak about them, but I'm not on the team. I'm not in the clubhouse. I'm not in the dugout. I'm not a beat reporter. I'm an outsider. Most of you listening and watching, you're outsiders. No disrespect, but that's just what we are. And as an outsider, you can only really follow the logic. Now, this is odd. It's a bit of a paradox because this is a results business. Sports teams are judged on results, wins and losses. General managers, presidents of baseball operations, managers, owners, players are judged on the results, the wins and the losses. But when you're an outsider, like I am, like a lot of you are, and you're looking at front office decisions, all you can do is look at the logic that went into them. Because sometimes something that seems like it's not going to be consequential at all winds up being a great move. And sometimes the easiest slam dunk move, no brainer, winds up being a terrible move. Now, sometimes you have the Juan Soto move, a no-brainer move, a must-do move, a you have to do this, I hope it works, and it's worked. I hope they get him, and it worked. But a lot of times you get some of the other stuff too. A move that never should work that works, and a move that should work 100% of the time, and for some reason, this one just doesn't. So while GMs and presidents of baseball operations are judged on the results, all we can do from afar is follow the bouncing ball. Does the logic make sense? A to B, how did you get there? I get it or I don't. And when you go back to the trade deadline last year, I didn't like all the moves, but I understood them all. When you go back to the offseason, I liked most of them, even the ones that were unpopular, but I didn't like all of them, but I understood it. I followed the logic. Since then till now, the Mets have made more confounding decisions, more confusing decisions, more decisions that not only can I not follow the logic, I can't find the logic. For my money, these decisions are devoid of logic. So we've now gotten to a point where I can't trust this process because I can't trust the person making it. I never thought in a million years that a team run by David Stearns would be this stupid. I never thought they'd be this inept, this inactive. But that's what they are. And so I don't think that the Mets are going to fire David Stearns. I don't think that they are. And the reason is, I don't think Steve Cohen wants to have another person running baseball operations. I think that would be 6 GMs in 6 years. That's not a recipe for success. So I think the continuity is important. That's always what I've leaned into all season. When I was defending him earlier in the season, that's what I was leaning into. At some point, you have to allow a person to see their plan through. And the Mets have not really allowed, under Steve Cohen, sometimes through no fault of their own, because people like Jared Porter are bad people, but the Mets have not allowed one person to see a vision through. And I thought, you know what? Just let David Stearns do it. Let him see it through. Plus, you've got the lockout, or the potential lockout that's going to happen this offseason. Doesn't seem like a great time to be shopping for baseball executives and to be throwing your organization into disarray yet again. So those were the reasons why I defended this man. And those are the reasons why I still believe that the Mets are not going to move on from David Stearns. The difference is, now I think they have to. I don't think they will, but now I think they have to. This has fallen so far. This has fallen to a level that I find not only unacceptable, but unfathomable. It's June 25th, and I don't know how we got here. There was a book written about the New York Mets called The Worst Team That Money Could Buy. They're approaching that territory. There were people who said to me that was what was going to happen with this team this season, and I did not believe them. And I laughed at them. And maybe record-wise, they won't really come close. But, man, were they right. Because what we've watched this season, what we've watched this series, what we've watched just today in 2 games, but specifically, or just last night, but specifically the nightcap of that doubleheader, unacceptable, unfathomable. Some of the worst baseball you will ever see. And it's not just one day. It's not just one game. It's not just one series. And now for the 2026 Mets, it's not just one season. This is a pattern of behavior. and the pattern needs to be broken. That's going to do it for this episode of Mets Daily. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We're sitting at just over 4,000 subscribers, as we would love to get to 5,000 before this awful, terrible season ends. But more importantly than that, we would love for you to be a part of it, because if we've got 82 more games of this, I'd rather spend it with you. So again, if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do so. Until next time, I'm John Saponaro. See you tomorrow.